shoot. We are men. Are we not men, Chris?
We are Devo.
Yes.
Oh, wait, actually, no, we're not Devo. We're the Cinema Sluts.
Of the Cinema Triforce.
But, aww.
We have to start this with yet another damn death this week. Can people just stop dying for a while? Bob Casal, one of the founding members of Devo, lost to us this last week. So, hence our intro. And those guys definitely, they were kind of the proto Daft Punk.
I can see that.
A lot of people kind of thought they were robots, and they played at that. Mm-hmm. You know, they had a certain presentation, and like they were automatons or, you know, things like that.
And their gear has definitely withstood the test of time.
They are still ahead of their time. Music hasn't yet caught up with how awesome Devo is and was.
Join the de-evolution.
We bring you the future. Future!
Dun, 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 dun. I always get the song mixed up with another song, but yes.
What's the other song?
Can't remember right now. I just know it's another Polydorus theme that I get it mixed up with because it's Basil frickin' Polydorus.
Yes, RoboCop.
Both the 1987 and the 2014, because as we said last week, we went and watched it and we're like, surprisingly good.
Well, I went and watched it, and then I sent Chris to watch it.
And I ran, didn't walk.
He almost hurt himself.
Oh, no, I did.
Bloody nose the whole time watching the movie, but through the bloody nose, I think he enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're going to have another comparison episode with a film that we both thought we were going to hate.
Right?
Quite honestly, we're like, oh, God, are you kidding me? Oh, come on, Gary Oldman, no.
Yeah, my date that I went in with, I was like, there's a lot of room for this to be bad.
Oh, there was an arena. Wait, where'd Queen play? The big, huge one? There was
This is Wembley.
This is Wembley room.
Could be bad. Yeah, I think both of us were pleasantly surprised, and both our ladies that we took with us, respectively.
Oh, yeah, Danny loved it.
Yeah, it's a really surprising film, man.
Right?
And we've spent the entire week, go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like all my coworkers, and they're like, what? No. Somebody said, oh, go see Remakes. I'm like, no, you don't get it. You gotta go.
And it is not kind of a remake, even though names and certain things are the same, even logos. Thank you.
Yeah.
But very different movie, but at the same time, having some of the same themes. So yeah, let's just plunge headlong into it.
Yet another Queen reference. Starting with the future of 1987.
Paul Verhoeven's quintessential ultra-violence, which would beget stuff like Total Recall. Matt, what episode did we have to do that on?
Total Recall, we did that one in episode 69, our second Arnold episode.
69, dudes!
And Starship Troopers, and some would wager Hollow Man, even though Hollow Man was not specifically ultra-violent, but still had certain little aspects
It's one I want to go back and watch again and kind of see what I think about it now. Mm-hmm. I remember kind of being nonplussed with it at the time.
I know, you'll want to watch it just for Elizabeth Shue.
Elizabeth Shue.
And her tight clinging shirt. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Paul Verhoeven, run, don't walk.
But don't hurt yourself.
The guy is almost David Lynchian in his ability to be like, I'm going to sit and listen. Wow, this guy's Dutch and crazy.
I don't think most people would give him that much credit.
Probably not.
Lynch is way up there. Like, he's the kind of artist that a lot of people don't get and are pissed about. Paul Verhoeven, most people get pissed because they get it. Okay, this guy's a dunce and just likes blood and tits. Great.
See, it's weird because this one really does cement, for me at least, his craft as a director, because this movie, of course, is ultra-violent and, of course, has a lot of different overtones in it, but this is by no means a stupid movie. It's kind of like Fight Club, where if you just look at it on the surface, people will be like, oh, a stupid movie, really bang, 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 shoot, 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 shoot. And I really come forward and say, no, not all.
Sadly, the trailer for the new one kind of went that same route. They're like, look how actiony this movie is, but really didn't show you that there's going to be some thoughts behind this action.
Yeah.
You know, which is almost exactly what it's talking about.
Yeah.
This is really Verhoeven's first movie that people took notice of. Prior to this, he had done Flesh and Blood, and he had done The Fourth Man. Other than that, this is the first major film that he did, and I remember going to see this 2 or 3 times with my dad.
Wow.
We actually only got to see it and hear it once, but the first 2 times we went to the theater and the audio screwed up both times.
Oh, man.
So it was crazy because, like, it broke down, I think, in the trailers, and they tried to get it running, and then we watched, like, the first 5 minutes with no sound, and they'd, like, get it fixed, and it was broken, then they'd get it back, and it was broken.
And where was this at?
This was at the old post office, which is no longer a theater, in Pullman. Now it's a winery.
Yes.
Not exactly the same. So they gave everybody free tickets to come back and watch it again the next night, which most people did, and then it had the exact same problem. By this point, people are making fun of it. It's 87. There were Lost Boys trailers, and people were just, like, riffing on Lost Boys with no sound.
Michael!
Like, with them hanging on under the train bridge, like, I can fly, whee! But that would have put me at 11 years old watching this movie. I wonder if my dad, you know, was like, oh, I might have brought my boy into something a little violent, but I don't know, man. We'd seen a lot of crazy stuff by that point, so maybe he just thought we could kind of take it and it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, that was kind of the time for a lot of that stuff. I know the whole parental guidance and the MPAA stuff has really become a little bit more, not necessarily nanny state in that sense, but there's still certain moments. Even when I've been working the box office here, and two guys brought their respective kids who were like around 8 or 9, I was still kind of like, eh.
Wait, to which one?
To the new one.
To the new one.
And I wouldn't chance it, quite honestly.
But was that before you saw it?
This is after I saw it.
Because I don't think the new one is really questionable to a kid.
No. The 87 one is definitely much more violent and much more graphic, but still just entertaining. The idea of bringing your kid to watch this movie is, I still think, a little like, not irresponsible, but it gives me more pause than my blessing.
Sure, I think I would trust it, and I would hope that maybe the parents looked into it a little bit, but my thing is, like my brother and I, neither one of us are even remotely violent, and, we're able to control ourselves in public and all that. None of this stuff was really impacting. I think for all the people that argue about this stuff with sex and violence and language, things like that, and even we curb ourselves to make sure we can reach a broader group of people.
Yes.
However, I think when it comes down to it, it's the parents. Like, that part of the equation is going to be the strongest part of preventing your kids from being that way and understanding storytelling versus how you behave in person.
I definitely agree, but I feel that there is the PG-13/R thing is something to consider once girls or boys hit puberty. That's when you can actually start putting the litmus tests and stuff. Like, I didn't watch the Godfather movies until I was hit my puberty. I didn't start watching films that my dad loved, but he deemed a little too violent. I even might remember my parents being a little apprehensive about showing my 6- and 7-year-old brothers the Batman movies just because they were kind of scary and a little violent. It is subjective, but I just think that parents shouldn't rely on
ratings.
Ratings. They should go and watch it themselves to think if they want to watch it with their kids.
Sure. And I would show my kids either the RoboCops, not my fictional kids, fictional children. I would show them either the RoboCop movies before I would show them The Godfather. One, because of the violence that's in all of the Godfather series, which we have talked about. See episodes, whatever those are, 40 and 60. We talked about all three of them, and eventually we'll spoil.
Oh, Matt, you broke my heart.
You betrayed me, Chris. But because in between all the real graphic violence that would be hard for a kid to understand, it's all political and slow and boring and long. So either way, I don't think the kids would really enjoy. It's like showing them the Seven Samurai. Like, well, I'm trying to show them some culture. Like, could you show them 90 minutes of culture first, then see about getting them into 3.5 hours of culture? You're drowning them in the deep end, Daddy.
It cannot be denied that Verhoeven's RoboCop is indeed a whoa.
He is the reason, he's the cause for the nanny state argument coming into play. He's the Two Live Crew of filmmakers. Much as I was the kid who ended up causing the railing to come up on the bunk beds the following year after I fell down and broke my wrist on the concrete floor. I think there were carpet on the concrete the next year as well.
You dumbass.
Damn you, Silver Lake. Well, not the lake. It was, the bunk. Anyway, along with this, you've got Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner writing for this, both of whom have really done next to nothing since then. Other than, like, Starship Troopers, Neumeier wrote for 3 films out of 17. Everything else is related to RoboCop, or in his case, related to Starship Troopers. Whether it's the video games, the series, the new movie, the TV shows. They tried to do a TV series based on RoboCop in 1997 and also in 2000. I think each of those respectively got like 40-some episodes and then 23 in the other one.
Jeez Louise.
So they got somewhere, but not very far. Michael Miner, he didn't write Starship, but he wrote his one called Deadly Weapon, which I don't really remember. And Lawnmower Man 2.
To be fair, Lawnmower Man 2 is not too bad, because Matt Frewer is Job in it.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, getting to the actual actors in this movie. Frickin' Peter Weller! Woo! I love Peter Weller, and it is largely because of this movie, man. He is the shining jewel in this. And you've got some awesome actors, but Peter Weller, oh, God, I love what he does in this. Because he's so charming and disarming, in a way. He's the cop that you'd want to run into, where he's stern, but you feel like he'd actually talk to you if you approached him that way.
He's your best friend's dad, who happens to be a cop.
Yeah, who might shoot you.
Yeah.
But only in, under the arm of the law.
Because dead or alive, you're going with him.
He actually showed up in a handful of episodes of Sons of Anarchy this last year. And then he was in Star Trek 2, and Chris didn't recognize him because he didn't really grow up watching RoboCop with the ferocity that I did.
I used the word ferocity to describe my almost Beetle girl devotion to the RoboCops. Except for 3, because 3 doesn't have Weller.
Yeah, when the star leaves, there's something wrong with the series. The guy who plays the bad guy, in this one we've got Mr. Kurtwood Smith.
Yes.
Red Foreman.
See, this and Dead Poet Society were all I knew Kurtwood Smith for before I ever watched that 70s show. And he has a bit part in Star Trek 6. He plays, like, the president of the Federation.
And he was also in Rambo 3.
I always associate him being a bad guy. And apparently, this was the first film where he actually played a bad guy.
And he did it so well.
Oh, yeah, but easily in that top 5 bad guys from the 80s kind of thing. And also, something I didn't notice until we watched this is that all of Verhoeven's films, there's a hierarchy of bad guys. And then Total Recall, it's the same thing. You know, it's Richter and Ronnie Cox. And the same thing in Starship Troopers, well, the hierarchy with the bugs.
That was the only thing that didn't happen in Starship Troopers was like a scene, you know, they're dying and they're watching a video of a bug, like telling them what their demise is going to be.
That would be amazing.
There's been some callbacks in this, and I know we're derailing our own selves, of course, here, but I thought there was some crossover that I didn't notice before. There's the recall moment where you've got the bad guy, and it is still Ronnie Cox talking to the person that's probably going to die or in threat of dying.
Oh, he's monologuing.
Yeah, like on video. Like, here, someone brought this for you, and let me plug this in real quick. Do you guys have hi-fi?
Do you have middle finger USB?
I want one of those, man. I want a USB glow with a middle finger and also a stabbing weapon. Peter Weller, to get back to him. Batman. For the Dark Knight Returns cartoon series that they made, he actually does the voice for Batman, and he's great. That's probably some of the best work I've seen him, well, best work I've heard him do in the last decade. Weller was a man of the 80s. He had some really good stuff, and of course people would be mad at us, I think, if we didn't mention Buckaroo Banzai. Yeah. Not my favorite movie. That's one of those things, like, every few years you kind of need to check in with yourself and see on your stream of consciousness where that movie fits for you, but I've never really been that huge of a fan of it.
Still never seen it.
It's worth seeing. You kind of have to form your own opinion of it, but it is bizarre.
I've heard I need to watch it just for John Lithgow. Because everyone's like, if you like John Lithgow, you have to watch this movie.
Lithgow and Goldblum, I think, as well.
What?
Leviathan is in that as well. There were so many of these movies that came out at the same time and you kind of get them mixed up. That is one of them. And then to bring us around to Miguel Ferrer, one of the bad guy hierarchy in this, he was in Deep Star 6.
I was just going to say, he's probably Deep Star 6 is what people get confused with Leviathan.
And The Abyss.
Yeah, and people will be The Abyss. I'm like, no, Deep Star 6 is most definitely not The Abyss.
Yeah, it's The Abyss with a hell of a lot of blood. Miguel Ferrer, we talked about in episode 85 for Traffic, and then 96 for Mulan, because he did that voice and we couldn't figure out who he was. Crossing Jordan, I think we might have mentioned before. I almost watched that show for him, but I didn't. And he was in Star Trek 3 as well. And also Beverly Hills Chihuahua 3. The best of the series, most people would pretend.
The guy always takes work. That's one thing that you can really say about Miguel Ferrer is that he's always working, whether or not it's a good movie, but at least the guy's always paying the bills.
And he's always delivering. I've never seen him do a bad job. It might be movies that are maybe not as great, but his performance is never questionable.
No.
He is just always right there. Ronnie Cox.
Deliverance.
Oh, yeah. See, I've never seen that.
He aged really differently, too. Like, once his hair went gray and he lost a little bit, he looks really different than he did in the 70s. Like, now, of course, everyone recognizes him as being the bad guy from the Verhoeven movies, you know, either Total Recall or this, because he basically is the same character.
Or being Chief Bogomil in Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah.
That was primarily where I watched him before growing up and before Verhoeven came around. We talked about him in episode 69 for Recall. And then the partner, Miss Nancy Allen, who wasn't really in a lot, although she was in Poltergeist 3.
She was in the second one, too, wasn't she?
No, I think she was just in the third. I might be wrong, but...
Apparently, Verhoeven specifically had her alter her look when she got cast in this because she got cast late, and he specifically wanted to have any female desexualized, so she had her hair cut.
Yeah, the intro to her is beating the crap out of a suspect who's getting out of line. It was really awesome, and it's a great reveal.
She's in that pantheon of 80s women like Vasquez, like of those sort of kick-ass girls. Now that I think of it, Verhoeven did a really good job because I never thought of her as being sexualized, and I was always hyper-sexualized Vasquez because she was just... so hot, but her, I'm just sort of like, oh yeah, I can see that.
Meanwhile, I think one of the other big movies that Nancy Allen was in was this Brian De Palma movie called Dress to Kill in like 1980, which I've never seen, but now I kind of want to because I do like her, man. She's one of those people I'm not sure why she hasn't gotten more roles. You wonder how much politics is actually in Hollywood behind what we think of, because there are so many actors that are really like high caliber yet really drop off the radar, and I'm like, is it just these directors are the only ones that trust them, and nobody trusts that director, therefore they don't trust her? Like,
I'm sure there's some sort of inner politics that we'll never really know the workings of, but we just want to say, hey, Nancy Allen, I know you're listening to the podcast right now.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Hey, if we ever get a movie together, we're going to try and find you.
That would be pretty awesome.
Short hair or long. The thing about it is, as viewers, and certainly between Chris and I, we've kind of separated out those lines to where I think we're able to say, okay, maybe these aren't our favorite movies or that's not the best character, but you can see them doing a good job.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't see her doing a bad job in this movie, so I really would love to see her in other things. A kind of smaller role, but significant in the course of the film, Mr. Dan O'Herlihy. The other thing that I know him for, I really don't know him for any of his other stuff. And then The Last Starfighter, which we talked about in episode 84, where he's in full alien makeup for that.
Yeah. You're fired!
Yeah. I'm very disappointed, Dick. Failsafe is one of the only other movies that I've kind of got on standby. I've been meaning to watch in competition with Dr. Strangelove.
Oh.
Because they both came out about the same time and are both about nuclear armament and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Those are the ones that kind of people argue over which one's better.
Yeah.
Basil Paul Doris tends to always work with Paul Verhoeven, but of course this is one of the early collaborations. He did do Flesh and Blood for that score. Paul Doris, we talked about in episode 20 for Conan. Still one of my favorite scores ever. Hunt for Red October.
Really amazing score.
Red Dawn, Iron Eagle. Like Paul Doris and Verhoeven both, but more Paul Doris for all the stuff. You look at his history of composition. He does a lot of movies that you really have to defend your childhood. And we're like, no, man, I swear this is a good movie. And you sit down and you watch it, you're like, it was really good when I was a kid.
Listen, roasting glasses, okay?
All right, so now we're how far into this?
Nutshell of a movie. Well, it is. It's the good cop that
Has a misfortune?
has misfortune. In this one, he's killed. Unlike the new one where he's just wounded. This one, it's like he's presumed dead, and then all of a sudden he's brought back, and it's all point of view, done in a different narrative style.
Yeah, we'll get to the new one there, but yeah, they're significantly different in a way that I really, is why we recommend going to see the new one. For this one, as Chris was saying, fatal issue in the line of duty, and then they decide to use him as a means for this new project.
Yeah, he's a candidate.
Without permission, really.
Yeah, well, because he's dead, he can't really, yeah.
Right, but I mean, there's no consultation of the family that's ever talked about. There are a lot of things that are glossed over, which, for the sake of getting the film done in an hour 40 minutes, is probably the way to go.
He becomes a poster child for the wing of this company that basically has a lot of money invested in the development of this city. And so they're like, oh, we can make this our flagship in that sense.
Omnicore, or Evil Core, or GenCore,
GenCore,
who's going to take old Detroit and make this new city out of, and have it reborn. They fail a test for a fully robotic defense system to go against, the danger of cops and they're not be able to patrol the streets all hours. So this becomes the in-between, that there is kind of superhuman but human robot stuff. So it has that in-between world and starts looking at the moral implications of what that means. And in this case, the execs and the lawyers and everybody kind of has the defense on their side because he was no longer alive in the first place.
And plus, he is basically being a super cop.
He is TJ Laser, which is definitely a play on TJ Hooker. I thought that was kind of a nice little moment. And I don't know if I ever made that association early on watching this movie.
But then the political machinations of this corporation and its involvement within city politics starts to break down. And of course, there's inner workings, which we won't go into. And more than likely, you've all seen this movie anyway. But yeah, it's that everything that follows is the whole what is the question of being either man or machine and resisting programming. Even in death, humanity is able to resist the machine. In that sense.
Terminator, and even Crichton, one of his early books from
Terminal
the 70s, Terminal Man, exactly. Yeah. That notion of when do you lose yourself. This one, it comes at it from the angle of effectively he's no longer him.
Yeah.
They wipe his memory in the course of it. However,
life finds a way.
Thank you, Goldblum. Effectively, the robot in its rest state has a dream. And from that point forward, it's kind of the changing point where then all of a sudden he remembers aspects and he needs to go find these people and go find this place and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, Nancy Allen's character realizes, and she approaches him and she says, Murphy, it's you. And makes him maybe question and realize, and he looks himself up and sees that he's deceased.
And then he picks up the handbook and he has to go to the waiting room and talk to the lady who slit her wrist.
Smokes through her throat. Yeah, I heard about you. Got torn to pieces and then you had a robot suit on top of you.
Nice.
To me, the dream is kind of the intrusion of consciousness for what they thought that they could do, and maybe in the physical wipe of the brain in an underhanded way, because it's not talked about really at all in this original version, that it's not just your brain. Like your physical brain isn't everything that you are, that his consciousness, his dreams, the place this comes from is actually past the brain, or deeper than or other than the brain that they wipe. So it does kind of have this interesting question that isn't even overt in how he comes to sort of be reborn as Officer Murphy. And then it just kind of goes from there as far as the idea of him becoming a real fusion of man and machine through the course of this film. And then, of course, action, crash, boom, bang as well.
The makeup in this does look great. Even now, it looks really great.
Yeah.
When he takes off his helmet and stuff, they did a really good job of just sort of like, remember, this is all practical, and this is before CG. And we'll get into this more when we talk about the new one, but I was like, whoa, that looks like that's not his head. It looks like his face superimposed. Whoa!
Yeah,
You know,
it's really slick how they did it, because there are mechanics behind his face.
Yeah.
You don't see seams or anything. It's not like there's the bald cap. No, it's way beyond that.
is it Baker who did this?
I don't think it was Rick Baker, but it's very, very well done makeup. The other thing that happened in this, Moni Yakim, this tremendous mime, taught Peter Weller how to do all the robotic movements that he did.
Ooh.
And I actually got to see this guy perform in high school. We went to this competition, and he was a performer there at this dramatic festival. So I got to see him do a full-on like mime piece on stage where somebody turned into an old man, like from a child, and it was beautiful. So cool what he ended up doing. And his walking across the stage, like he would do a circle and then be the next age.
Oh, wow.
Just the shuffle that he had going around this, I swear, it didn't look like it was him. It was really wicked how he pulled this off, and you can see the talent. Unfortunately, this was the most significant thing that he really had. He doesn't have a bunch of stuff on his IMDb page. This is it, the RoboCop series and one other thing. But it's tremendous, man, and I'm really glad this happened, because Peter Weller almost had to lose some of the training, because when they got him into the suit 11 hours after he turned up to see the new suit, the day of shooting, they went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on the design.
Yeah.
And Rob Bottin, who designed some of the alien stuff and some of the coolest things you've ever seen in film in the last 30 years, the original design for the suit was ultimately what they came back to after things got delayed and delayed and delayed.
The irony.
So he finally gets into the suit 12 hours later, and he can barely do the movements that he was trained to do.
And when he's not baking in the suit, which they shot in like 98-degree weather, and he said he was losing something like 3 pounds a day until they installed the air conditioning part to it, which is just lose weight quick. Starring RoboCop, you know?
Yeah, and Peter Weller's not a big guy to begin with.
That's what basically got him the part, is that he was not a big dude. A lot of other people were considered for this role, but it's so weird when I read that, because I was like, no, he's a big... Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of him as RoboCop when he's big. I'm like, oh, that does kind of make sense. He's kind of a svelte guy.
Which stands to reason, too, if you think about it, the story, like the benefit of having a robotic suit or something like that. It doesn't matter how strong you were. And in this case, it's not really your body anymore. It's just parts of you, so to speak. However, he does use his parts well. There's a significant part in this film showing the prowess of RoboCop. There's like 3 or 4 different scenes defining him when they show him. And it's a really cool introduction to the character, I thought, as well. They have it kind of mysterious. The process that they had was everything seen through his eyes as he's on the hospital bed. And then all of a sudden, it's a visor screen, and you can see the lines on the screen. It was almost like The Matrix probably had some influence in this for how Neo keeps waking up. It's like them all looking over him.
All POV shot.
Yeah, it's the same shot. And the reveal for him is really slow, and it's cool how it's done.
Yeah, I can imagine, even especially in that time before you had really seen a lot of it, it was really cool.
That's the thing I think that makes it a lot different. Not necessarily that all kids now have grown up watching any of those original 3 movies that came out of the series, but it is an iconic character in certain ways, and a really, really freaking cool design.
Completely iconic character, so much so that Detroit commissioned a statue that's going to be revealed in a couple of months.
And that's what broke the bank.
I think that Verhoeven does not get enough credit. Anytime he places the media in his movies, I'm just like, whoa. Like, this and Starship Troopers especially, where I'm like, whoa. It's basically him with his finger pointing right through the camera, being like, wake up, everybody. Like, it's really, really well done.
But if you're not waking up, would you like to know more? Yeah, the intro to the movie is through television and through the news. And they have these mock commercials that are in it.
He loves his media commentary, man. He
I
does.
can't remember if it was the second RoboCop where they had the SPF 1000 or like, talking about how ridiculous the heat was going to be in the future, that you had to put on this like blue, nasty, horrible stuff for sunscreen.
Talking about Lee Iacocca Elementary School and stuff. It's just all over the place where you're like, I see what you did there. And a lot of this stuff, of course, is not contemporary now. Like, people watching this would have to either live through this or being aware with some of the politics that were going on at the time to be like, I wonder. But really big ups to Verhoeven for doing that. And I don't think he gets enough credit because the guy did direct Showgirls and Hollow Man, which a lot of people are like,
Showgirls is not worth the effort. Like, if it comes down to it, just find a site where you can watch the scenes for nudity if that's really what you want to do. Anything else going on in that movie, it's not worthwhile. What is worthwhile, however, is the new version of RoboCop.
Jose Padilla? Padilla.
Yes.
Who hasn't really done that much of American. I mean, a couple, but...
No, the international film for us, local to some of you who might be listening, the Elite Squad series, which I've seen come up a couple times. Are you familiar with them?
I am familiar with them, and they don't really hold any allure for me.
I hope this will be along the lines of Guillermo del Toro getting American work after doing this, because this, to me, is really well done. The new movie is incredibly well made. There is certainly nothing wrong in the production process of this film.
No.
For anybody who's going to have complaints about this, it might be specific actors, specific story aspects, or just the way it's done is different because you like the hyper-violence and the irreverent nature of the original film. I love the original film. I own the original film. But I got to tell you what, when I watched the new one and now went back and watched the original for the sake of this podcast, it's kind of faded by comparison.
Yeah, I will agree.
It's weird. And we're watching it with Danny. I'm like, I want to see what a new person thinks of it. She was blown away by the new one and really was kind of like, I could see the value of the original, but yeah, I don't know. I really like the new one better. I felt disappointed watching the original. I'm like, wow, man, this isn't even as strong as I remember it in certain ways.
They did a really good job in being able to stimulate conversation with this remake. And Verhoeven has commented on how this is just another money-making scheme by, the studios and such. And there's no doubt validity to that remark. But I'm glad to see that in this world of supposed unoriginality and remakes and bastardizing your childhood and XYZ,
right,
that there can be these little jewels in there where you're like, whoa, you know what? Yeah, in all likelihood, these are going to suck. Transformers. And man, it's a really good thing that they aren't remaking this. Back to the Future. It's just, this is one of those things where you hear about it, you're like, oh man, that isn't going to be really good.
Or man, I can't believe they're going to try and make a third movie. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Ghostbusters.
Then you look at the trailers for it and you're like, yeah, not really. I mean, don't get me wrong. I dig me Gary Oldman and I'm excited for Michael Keaton. And then we watch it. What? Matt came back and I was like, what'd you think? And he's like, I really liked it. You should go watch it. And that's like, you're me. He's like, no. Wow, man.
And man, hats off to Joshua Zetumer. The first thing he's ever done. The only thing that he's listed for doing right now. Holy crap, kid, keep going. Wow, what an amazing transition, because for all the questions that are under the surface for the original story, they are brought to the forefront in this story. It is more about the thought behind what this means.
Yeah, it's based on the contemporary society, especially one really glaring part where you're like, wow. But also, it has not as much irreverence in it as the original.
Oh, no, not at all.
But there's still those little moments where you're like, I see what you did there, Senor Satire.
Right, the part that comes through, and you don't necessarily get it on the trailers.
No, not at all.
Samuel L. Jackson, he's actually kind of like the hyper-conservative
Bill O'Reilly kind of character.
Yeah, not quite that far in, but definitely playing at that and talking about how stupid the anti-gun lobby is, or for that matter, even the morality that is going against fully mechanized or human mechanoid officers that can actually prevent death.
And that's specifically how this one derives from the original, too, is that we open on an international stage, which is not something you had in the original movie.
Right.
And that sends a direct link to modern people watching this hyper-violence that we live in nowadays, and also just we live in an imperialistic culture and we have our footprint all over the world right now, and the people who wrote this and directed this are very savvy to this. I mean, of course it was out there to make money and it's already made it back internationally, but it's not going to make it back domestically, so I imagine a lot of people say it's a flop. But there are certain moments in this where I was genuinely surprised, where I'm like, wow, they're obviously trying to say something right now, specifically with drones, unmanned machines.
Yeah, what's really nice about this too is the Ed 209 robot, which I was so happy to see in the trailers. I'm like, yes, Ed's coming back. Because it is a pivotal part, in the original films. Is the original robot that failed, but still is a big juggernaut that RoboCop has to go against.
And I was kind of bummed out there was no lion roar in this in the new one. I'm like, come on.
What's great is they totally take it for granted in this way. Sort of like Aliens just kind of takes the ball and goes like, okay, you already know the story, right? Let's go.
Yeah, there's no exposition for the people who need to catch up. It's like, no, you're watching the sequel and you haven't watched the first one? Well, that's your fault.
Yeah, it's your own fault. default, Ed 209's already in the scene. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're talking about. And then they've got other robots that look exactly like the RoboCop design, but are full robotic.
Mm-hmm. And the reason that they aren't in the U.S. is because of politics. Mm-hmm. And using the same logo, awesome.
Yes.
Oscorp/Badcorp/Evilcorp.
And the same theme actually comes through, although it's primarily used for the TV show that comes on. Yet it's used probably 2 times, 3, maybe even 4, but I think it's 2 times in the film. And I was so happy to hear it right in the beginning.
Right. They have the character of the CEO of this, Ronnie Cox's character, basically being Michael Keaton in this, which, yay! Take a step back, because we're so glad, man.
One of the first things that I think Chris and I did when we lived together was have a Michael Keaton fest.
Because
Chris was
how
like,
can you not?
We should just watch a bunch of movies like together, back to back with the same actor. So I mean, we were already like prepping for this 10 years ago.
Oh god, yeah, 14 years ago.
Like, to sit down and just barrel through somebody's stuff, like somebody that we really dig, or in this case, Chris hadn't seen a lot of those movies. So I'm like, yeah, dude, he was like the chief of the 80s. So let me show you some of this stuff. So we watched like 5 Michael Keaton movies over as many days. He's incredible, man, and I love that they were able to get him to kind of harness some of the stuff that he did, like in Gung Ho and Mr. Mom. There were a lot of Michael Keatonisms, not in the bad way. Like, for those who maybe don't like what he did in the 80s, there was more than that to it.
Oh, of course.
It's kind of the happy medium between his comic roles and then like his more kind of seedy roles in Pacific Heights and Desperate Measures, things like that.
Yeah.
We talked about him being Dogberry in Much Ado About Nothing, episode 19. For the Shakespeare.
And we'll cover him again.
Yes.
We will do Beetlejuice, and we probably will do either Mr. Mom or Giant Dangerously. I hear a lot of people swear by just for its ability to be themed and a period piece. You know? But he's wonderful in this as this enigmatic, I'm the nice guy CEO. He's not megalomaniacal. It's not this Ronnie Cox character like it is in the original one. He believes all this stuff, not because he's greedy, which is an aspect of it, but he believes so much in the product that he's just like, we gotta do this. Like, everything is just another hurdle.
Right. He believes so much in what he wants to do. He's trying to fight with people versus money versus casualties. He's trying to kind of juggle all those things, but it's just changing impression throughout the film, which means more to him.
And he's just being Michael Keaton, where he's like, I need him to do that. Like, it's wonderful.
Gary Oldman, wicked role in this. And he's somebody that I think we just keep putting off his roles as far as the films he's been in because
he's been everyone.
There's so many cool characters that he's played, and I think he's one of those guys, we love him so much, yet we haven't gotten to him much. It's been really incidental, where we talked about him for Dark Knight and Batman Begins, episode 51 and 29, and the only other one we talked about was Zorg for The Fifth Element, but we haven't gotten to a lot of the other films that we'll do.
He's a litmus test for new friends. He is. If your new friends don't like Gary Oldman, cut him to the curb right now. Like, you have to.
Don't like American History X them to the curb.
God, Jesus Christ. Way to return to an episode.
Send them out to it.
Because the man is a talent unto himself. And he is great in this because he's this multifaceted character.
He's the struggling moral compass.
Right.
In this. He's really being hit on both sides. Like, make it work, do what's right, do what's right. So he's really fighting the good fight in his head and in his actions. He balances that scale really well. We're talking about talent. Let's get to the new guy. The man who plays RoboCop, Joel Kinnaman. I've never seen him before.
Apparently he's off The Killing, which I still haven't seen.
Yeah,
a lot of people swear by it, but
a lot of people do recommend it for sure. Swedish guy. It was in that. He was in Safe House, which kind of came and went. I haven't heard much about it since then, but I definitely still want to check it out. I still have to tip my hat to Peter Weller overall, but Kinnaman, I thought, did a pretty fantastic job with the story that he was given and the character. He did all of it really well.
In my opinion, the family aspect of this is the weakest part of it. That's not to say that it's bad, and that's not to say that I'm glad it wasn't included in the original either, because it isn't. It's another facet of this character, but it's not at all the same that it is in this, where it's this driving mechanism because they're there. He's not divorced. They're still prevalent in his life. It felt almost tacked on ever so slightly. I think it was enough to have him solving his own murder. You know, that's when he starts to basically counteract this whole acquiescing to their requests, as it were.
Means no.
Yes, exactly. It's just that even though I don't like that part of the movie, he has this wonderful air of being a dad in it for so little time that you see him as an actual dad.
Right.
He really brought it through really well. I agree. Weller does an amazing job. But in this one, I was like, wow, this guy actually filled these other pair of shoes.
Yeah. What they were trying to do with this new one, I think, was talk about the other aspects. When you get stuff in news reports and somebody that was killed, somebody that was hospitalized, somebody that was this or that, somebody that was wronged, you very rarely get to hear about the family. You very rarely have any reports about the family other than he is survived by his wife and 2 daughters, and that's it. And you never hear about them again. There's no interest for how they're doing a year later, 5 years later. Nothing about the court cases. This, I think, really wanted to play to that. Like, here's what happens with everybody else that suffers in this, the people who are left. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a really bold attempt that maybe didn't pay back in full dividends.
See, I definitely agree. Had they just spent a little bit more time and chosen maybe a different actress to play his wife, because I think she went a little too full retard in this, in the words of
Robert Downey
Jr. It's just that every scene she had where she was in grief and racked by all this stuff going on, she was just this tightly wound ball that was always shaking, trembling, and leaking the whole time.
Yeah, but I was talking with Chris about that in defense of it, that I didn't feel as put off by it. To me, I think it's really hard to understand what those people go through, and what the problem with any of these films is they can't tell you all that. It's going to feel really false if somebody else stands there and tells you the ways that she's suffering, because her husband is effectively dead, but he happens to be alive in this really messed up state, and she beholds the state in which he is living, then is possibly losing her son to some kind of shock and not sure if he'll recover. She's technically married, but not to anything she can do anything about. She has 4 horses pulling her away. So the only thing that could have happened was you had like Meryl Streep or Glenn Close in there showing everything behind their eyes that I think Abby Cornish, unfortunately, just really didn't quite have the chops to do perfectly.
Or there also might be more, because this movie was really chopped to shit. As I heard, because it was going to be R. They were all fighting it for it to be R, and the studio was finally like, no, it's going to be PG-13 because we need to make the money back.
I was really surprised they pulled that, especially coming from the original film, but in the end, I didn't feel let down by that.
Me neither, but I really am excited to see what the director's cut is going to be. If they're like, oh, director's cut of RoboCop 2014 with 28 extra minutes, I'm going to be like, hello, sign me up, where can I pre-order it?
Yeah, and it might actually have more of the family aspect, and you can fully get where she's coming from on that. Abby Cornish, you might know from Seven Psychopaths. For people, she's the one who wasn't any of those famous guys. She was also in Sucker Punch, which I think we will get around to here for one reason or other. Mr. Jack Earl Haley has an interesting character in this that didn't exactly exist in the original story either.
No.
He's kind of the gun training aficionado. He's kind of the in-between, trying to reteach the guy, and actually draws a lot of the questions about the human flaw in law enforcement.
And also how this is not really a person anymore. Jack Earl Haley, he's a force of nature, man. Is if anyone not familiar, he played Freddy Krueger in the new remake that was done, which
was pretty great.
It's not too bad. He did a good job, because talk about England's shoes. Those are ginormous to fill.
Yeah.
But he also plays Rorschach in Snyder's version of The Watchmen. And I think he is easily one of the strongest characters in that movie. I love that whole movie, but him specifically because you never see his face.
He's the weight behind that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it was him, mostly because you don't see his face, so I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, he's Hugo Weaving it in that one. He's weaving his way through that role.
I haven't watched The Watchmen enough times to really have his voice registered in my head. But I mean, he goes back into the 70s, I think, in his acting.
He's the Helmet Kid from Bad News Bears.
I never saw that movie.
Yeah.
But he's in Maniac Cop 3. There's a bunch of 3s in this whole catalog of actors. There's a lot of gender play and reversals in this film. You've got Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who plays the chief.
McLeod.
In the story. She was in The Cell, Spy Games, and she was also in an episode of Sons of Anarchy over the last couple of years. She does a great job, and much like the way that I think Verhoeven was able to kind of desexualize people, you have to maybe admit that she looks like a woman when you first encounter her, but you never get any impression of that meaning anything afterward for her professionalism.
She's just as hard as a man.
And then they switched Lewis, which I was kind of surprised by, because I thought it was so significant in the first one for how able and powerful she is in a lot of that film and what service she provides. And then now Lewis is a black man portrayed by Michael K. Williams.
Yep, that guy's who has shot to fame from The Wire.
Right.
Omar in The Wire.
Plus he also sang Best for Last. Oh, wait, that was Vanessa Williams.
No.
I get all the Williams mixed up.
And yeah, he's great in this too. Granted, he is kind of playing that kind of gritty character. It is not Omar, but it's still that kind of gritty guy from the streets a little bit in this one.
I've never seen the show, so I don't. If you said Omar, I'm like, Omar Epps?
If there's anybody who is, takes away from that show, it is Omar's character, because he's drug dealer with a heart of gold who is also gay, and it's this crazy interwoven story.
Spoilers, yet if you've never seen that, you've maybe seen Community,
where he basically plays this character.
I come from the streets. He also showed up in Snitch with The Rock. 12 Years a Slave recently. He was in that as well. So I look forward to that guy doing some more stuff. I think his character was as nice of a fit as Nancy Allen in the original for their own ways.
I could see they backed up where it's like, okay, where are we going to tackle these things from the original movie, and where are we going to back off a little bit? We're going to try to go more into the family aspect of it. How about the whole partner bit? How about let's back off, but let's make him black, and then there can be that kind of little like, oh, partners, they're interracial and da-da-da-da-da.
But it worked, and there was still an approach to being involved in what was going on with his partner in the course of it that wasn't strictly his programming.
Yeah.
Which is the other significant thing that stood out from the original one, with the big crux of what RoboCop was capable of doing or what he was ordered to do was the 3 prime directives, and there was one that was classified. And that classification becomes important through the film eventually if you can't imagine that. But it was like, uphold the law, serve the public trust, and the third one, don't shoot people unless you need to stand your ground.
Oh.
Yeah, good times. This new one, that wasn't there at all. They don't look at that. Here, it is mostly about that argument of like, the man needs to be able to make decisions, the robot doesn't make decisions. There are meetings where they're discussing these kind of things, and ultimately Michael Keaton has to admit that no, the robot isn't going to feel bad for shooting a kid.
Yeah.
It's going to have shot a kid and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, it might know it did this right or it didn't do it right. If the kid's holding a gun and he shoots that kid, that's it. It's a threat. So there you've got kind of the aspect of being right or being wrong in an absolute sense, without any control beyond making that initial choice. If a child chooses to hold a gun, and in this case you'd have to roll it back to say, the parent better teach that kid, never hold a gun unless you are intending to kill someone right then and right there. These robots will in fact kill you if you're holding a gun. That's it. They're not going to ask you, why are you holding that gun? But the whole point of having, the RoboCop character was that, in this case, having the man inside the machine can ask, put the gun down, why are you doing this? You have 20 seconds.
There's a human element which is going to make it easier for people to stomach, even though they want the black and white when it comes to patrolling crime in their streets. The film is very accusatory in its sense of like, you want this. You want it around the world when it comes to defending us, when it comes to the home front. All of a sudden you get kind of, as they said, robophobic, and, which is really well done. But it is easily the best question posed by this film.
A really good idea, but not in my backyard.
Exactly. And another thing that is glaringly different in this one from the original is that Murphy is cognizant most of the time. And the only time he isn't is because his dopamine levels are like basically, shot to like 1%.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be like, it's not a robot thing, it's an emotional thing.
Here they actually talk about the human flaw on the one end, and Jack Earl Haley's definitely a part of that in the training, showing, look, the robots respond this much faster.
And that's why they're better.
And if you amplify that by fighting 30 targets versus 10, that 5 seconds equals 15 seconds. That 15 seconds equals this many lives that you saved because they didn't get a chance to shoot somebody that was a hostage.
It's logic versus emotion in that sense of like A, B, C.
Yeah, facts and figures versus implications of those facts and figures.
Oldman's character is very much talking about the emotional, but just also the human element of the soul in terms of how we're perceiving stuff, and that's why it's going to be more palpable for the American people to approve of new robots and RoboCops being on the street.
In the original, it was kind of taken for granted that they just wiped and through doing that, suppressed his human nature. Yet it resurfaces. Here, in the new one, it's an active part of the film that it is still present. His brain and everything else is still there to actually allow him to make these choices and to have decisions in it, not just programming, yet they suppress it to make him more efficient.
And that is what makes this movie, in my opinion, better than the original, is that they delve deeper into this whole man versus machine, this concept of, like, why would we not want this person to defend us?
Man versus machine, you mean like Rozelle versus DJ Scribbles?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
I knew it!
One, fight!
And just remember, it's man versus machine.
Thank you, Wu-Tang.
You are old. That's just all I'm going to say there because I don't get that reference.
Oh, yeah, that's true, because you get every reference unless it's...
I was being slightly sarcastic, but...
They didn't get that. They don't see your eyes, your filthy, lying eyes.
They're hungry.
You can't hide them. I hate the freaking Eagles. No, I don't really. The effects in this are equally impressive in this time. In certain ways, the original film holds up in a way that you wouldn't expect, which Verhoeven is actually pretty good for. Like, most of his stuff, and we actually talked about Verhoeven also in episode 56 for Basic Instinct, a movie that was more than just sex, in the way that RoboCop is about more than just violence. There's like one boob shot, and then the rest of the movie is just about the story. So it's not quite like Starship Troopers, which I've never been a big fan of.
The effects hold up well for RoboCop, and the contemporary effects in this do look great. Especially, there's one scene in particular where I was like, wow, that does look pretty damn impressive.
What's a lot greater of a risk in this is the hyper-dependence on CG, which I felt like there was enough practical or enough masking of it that it didn't feel like it was CGI.
Exactly.
For a lot of this stuff. There were bits where I couldn't tell if they built Ed 209s for that guys to jump onto and fight. I think they were real. I don't know. It's hard to tell. And that, to me, was good filmmaking.
And it works, yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel that way. It's not overwrought with that. So that, to me, was really refreshing. For people that want a lot of action, the one thing I would say about this film is that this newer one is not nearly as much action as the original film.
Yeah, the pace is a little different.
Yet, the old one, to go back and watch it, there's a lot of in-between also. It's just when the violence happens, it's not so uber-violent and graphic, ridiculous violent, the way that one was intentionally so. I was really impressed by this, and the effects especially. I don't think it's a spoil because we're not talking about how or why they show it, but they show what's left of Murphy in this film, and it's really cool. Because I think it's the question that everybody wanted. You know, like, that to me was what Padilla did really nice, that he kind of, I think, considered the questions either that he and or other people had growing up about the original RoboCop.
And then just...
What does he look like under that thing? I mean, yeah, you saw his face, but what about the rest?
Let's expand it.
They actually show you, so they pull apart the suit and you see what's left, and I really dug that bit. It was very cool, and also they allowed you to understand what it might mean for other people to actually see that who really care about this person. Yeah, not just like, that's a really neat character thing in this movie. Like, no, I knew this guy when he was a full human being. Don't ever show me that again. You know, it's like, I don't need to see it because it's in my retinas for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I was impressed, and it takes a lot in regards to effects to impress me because, and it's not because I have a discerning eye, but I'm just sort of like, oh, I could see what there's even certain things in like the new Hobbit movies where I was like, meh. But this is the one where it was able to meld so well for the practical, if there was practical, versus the computer graphics. I was pleasantly surprised, but they also didn't rely on it too much. It's definitely a human story, ironically. And he did a really good job of being able to further that, both with the talent and with the storyline, but also he didn't aim too high. I think if he had aimed too high, it could have like gone down in flames, Michael Bay.
There's a risk of soapbox, but they never got up on it, which I thought was really great. Like, they made some points. They didn't necessarily answer those. They left it kind of open. They allowed both sides to have genuine points.
Yeah.
So neither person seemed stupid. And the other one absolutely right. So I thought they had an ambiguity that was really necessary in any of these arguments. You know, and most people that are big fans of sci-fi would say almost any of these kinds of stories are about humanity.
Yeah.
Robot versus humanity. Exactly. What does that mean? Aliens by way of explaining what humans are. Demons by way of saying what it means to be good. All of these opposites are things that aren't us to explain what is, in fact, us. I think this one really has a great sampling of those kind of issues. And a cool way of doing it, yet you can get it done. It's the way that Marvel has made a lot of great action movies, the way that like both members of the couple walked away from Iron Man really validated.
Yeah.
I think RoboCop mostly will do the same thing. Some of the women might be let down by that woman as an identifiable character, but some might have gone through something similar and be like, holy crap, I've been that woman.
Yeah, I've been racked by grief.
Yeah, so who knows, man? We might get kneecapped by somebody that really feels for that woman and her plight. Don't really kneecap us. I mean, we just mean verbally make us feel bad. Don't hurt our knees.
It's pretty surprising that the film hasn't done as well as it has. I'm genuinely surprised by that.
I'm going to continue pushing for it while it's in the theaters because it was really good. I'll probably go see it again.
Yeah.
It's really great, man. With that, I think we'll just kind of seal it up. Say both these films are brilliant in their own way. This is probably the most exceptional one that we've done in that it's so different from its original format. The ones we've talked about that are better, you know, with like Lion in Winter, Flight of the Phoenix, The Day the Earth Stood Still was one where the original was better in my eyes. Chris and I think argued about that a bit. And that one is probably one where the conceptual part was fairly different. But this one, I think it's vastly different.
I'm excited to see, especially apparently Latin directors too now, because this and The Evil Dead, which I really, really, really enjoyed. Wow, keep going. Bring in good talent from Latin American countries, man. And
that you watch this movie, you know, with subtitles or dubbed in another language that you do or don't understand, that doesn't mean you're not going to get the nuts and bolts of how these films are made. And obviously these guys get it and can figure out ways to modernize it. You know, somebody was saying, well, obviously it's going to be good 30 years later or now, you know, different concepts. I'm like, no, man, it's the same concepts. They just looked at it in a different light. They kind of shift perspective. And I really appreciated the way they did it so that both these films coexist in totally different ways.
Yeah, the remake of RoboCop has the Cinema Sluts stamp of approval.
Definitely.
Wow. Awesome. Yes, we probably run a little long, but that's why you guys are here, because you want to just keep hearing us talk.
Yes.
But we're going to actually stop talking now.
Right.
Okay.
Sluts out.
I'm Chris Fred.
I'm Matt Ellison.
We are the Cinema Sluts.
And now we are out. Officially.
Turn off the episode or there will be trouble. Direct number 1. Uphold the law. All right.
See, I got this problem. Cops don't like me. So I don't like cops. Na 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 na. All right.
That's the end. Bitches leave.
Still my favorite. Like, that's always the one that I fear people won't get, but I want them to so bad. Just like to pull a Clarence Potter, like, bitches leave. I work for Dick Jones. Dick Jones runs OCP. OCP runs the cops. And they don't respond well to bullets. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. I want him to do that. Stop whining. We're trying to do this to save the lives of police officers. Or something like that. I'm really being liberal. Like, I can't remember what his exact lines are in that. Hey, you haven't seen the movie. You don't know anyway.
Ma'am, you're suffering from shock. I will call a rape crisis center. Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Good job, son. What's your name?
Murphy. Murphy. I'm trying to figure out a way to make 3 syllables out of that.
Murphy.
Murphy. Kill me. I'm here. Come on. Do it. Do it now. It's like Butthead as Peter Weller as RoboCop as Predator's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I am the party pooper.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's like ironic in a sense. All right.
Yeah. Woo.